Hey YouTube, welcome back to the channel. Today's video we're going to show you how to repair the dents in this tailgate and repaint it, and we're going to do it right now. Sometimes you can get to these dents from the inside, sometimes you can't. So in that case we'll have to use something different to pull it out, but I'll show you what that is a little bit later. But for now we're going to try and push this out the best we can with a pry bar without doing any damage to this tailgate. Okay, so it looks like this dent right here, I'm not going to be able to get to from the back side. Maybe not, but what I found is I can pretty easily get to this dent. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to push that out. I'm going to open up this tailgate here. Right in here, if I reach in here, I can feel the dent right there. So I'm going to put this pry bar in here and get on that dent and push that out. All right, let's take a look, see how it looks. Okay, so here it is after I've done some push. You can see, start to push it out there. Not as great as I thought, but we'll continue to work on it. Okay, so this came out pretty good now. It's kind of hard to tell on the video, but what I did is I pried in the center here while I knocked down these ridges. And it feels pretty good. Just a small amount of filler is going to take care of that. This won't be a problem pushing out, but this, unfortunately, I believe I'm going to have to drill a hole. I don't like drilling holes, but this metal is very tough, and for me to weld a stud on there and pull it, I don't know if that's going to work. It might. I might try it and then hammer this ridge out. So let's do that now. Okay, so here I'm grinding this down, getting this prepped out. I decided not to try a stud puller. So I drilled a little hole, 1/8 inch drill bit, and put it right pretty much on that ridge so I can pull that big indention out. I'm not going to really do a slide hammer pull on it right away. What I'm first going to do, I might slide hammer pull it just a little bit, but first what I want to do is pull it, put some pressure on it, and try and knock down those ridges, and that'll relieve that dent just a little bit so it comes out easier when you're pulling it and you don't end up over pulling it. But here I'm slide hammering it just to get it out just a little bit. And now I've got some pressure on it, and I'm gonna hammer that high ridge down around that dent that dent's created while I'm pulling it. So as I'm hammering, that dent's coming out. Okay. Okay, up here I've finished pulling this dent out and hammering it down, and as you can see, it looks pretty flat, pretty smooth, and it's going to be easy to fix from here. After it's all grinded down here, we're going to get ready for some body filler. Okay, so if you look here, I've ground this down in preparations for some body filler. All three of these dents have been pushed out or pulled out, and what I'm going to do is prep out the outer surfaces around the edge so the body filler will adhere, and I'm going to do that with some 80 grit and a DA and then I'll probably go over it with some 180. So here I am putting some filler in it. Pretty self-explanatory there, and there is the filler, the first coat of filler. I think the first coat is going to fill any of the larger low spots, and I kind of use it as a kind of a guide coat, and because you always typically have to put 2 coats on it. So I'm going to block sand this down, and then we'll see where we're at and what needs to be done at that point. Okay, now I'm going to use my long block with some 80 grit on it. And as you can see, I'm going to use a cross pattern in blocking in an X to get this panel straight. If you want a more detailed explanation of how to block body filler, check out my video. I'll leave it in the link below, how to block properly, and that'll show you everything you need to know on blocking body filler. Okay, so after blocking this out, I have exposed a few little high spots and some other low areas. So I'm going to put a second coat on this, and then I'm going to use a guide coat to help me make it straight and find the minor low spots and that type of thing. Okay, so here I'm going to spray a little guide coat on this, and you just really have to put just a little bit of paint on there just to get a little bit of coverage, so when you are blocking it, it exposes the low spots. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and block this again using the X pattern and using the guide coat to show me all the low spots, if there is any. So I blocked this top section. It's fairly straight, but right in this body line there's some low areas, so we're going to have to repair those. Okay, so now I have blocked this, sanded it. I'm going to go over it on my DA with some 180 grit sandpaper and remove some of those 80 grit scratches that are real coarse. You want to try and remove any coarse scratches before you put primer on. That will just help to keep those scratches from, or the primer from shrinking into those scratches and causing a problem in your finished product. And then I'll probably go over it with some 320 on my DA to remove the 180, so you kind of want to step it down as you go along to a finer sandpaper until you prime it. So now I'm just going to clean it off a little bit, remove some of the dust, and then I believe I'm going to block it a little bit here with some 320 on a long block before I prime. Here I'm going to add a little glazing putty. I'm using the icing putty that I normally use, and I'm filling a few of these low spots in this body line, and I'm going to fill some of the pinholes that I found in the body filler. There wasn't too many, but we're going to take care of those here. Okay, so I'm going to block it out here. I have a little rubber block with some 180 grit sandpaper that fits right real nicely in that groove, and we're going to block that body filler out. Okay, so now we have it all ready for primer. As far as the body filler is concerned and the sanding, we are going to tape this up and get ready to spray some 2K urethane primer on it. It's a primer that hardens over the body filler, and it helps to keep scratches from that primer just shrinking. The 2K actually hardens like a clear coat. So we're going to tape it up and spray it. Okay, now I'm going to wipe it down with some wax and grease remover, remove any contaminants before we spray the primer. Here's a look at the primer. Now that's all primed, we're going to get ready to sand it. I do have a few runs we're going to sand out. Let's get to it. Now we're going to add a little guide coat, and then we're going to start blocking. And right here, after I've started blocking, I noticed a few low spots I wanted to show you just how it works. and we're going to block those out. We should have plenty of primer on here to block those out without repriming. Okay, I've set this up on my stand outside so I can sand it. I'm going to use some 600 and DA this entire tailgate and get it ready for paint. Okay, let's wipe it down with some wax and grease remover and then tape it up for paint. Okay, it's all taped up. Let's tack rag it down with this tack rag and remove any dirt or dust that's landed on this. Okay, it's time to put the first coat of color on. The first thing I'm going to do is cover the primer areas. Get a light coat, light to medium coat on the primered areas. Let it tack off for about 15 minutes and then put another coat on. After we've let it dry for about 10 to 15 minutes, make sure it's really good and cure. We're going to wipe it down once again with the tack rag, remove any dust. So now we're going to go ahead and put a coat of paint on the rest of the tailgate. So I decided to go ahead and wet sand and buff and polish this entire tailgate. So I'm going to go over it with some 2000 grit wet sanding paper, and this is the best process that I found. Is I use 2000, go over the entire thing, and then I go back over it with some 3000 grit wet dry paper. It's actually not paper, it's a soft 3000 grit sponge, and it comes out very nice. As you can see, it smooths it out very nice. I started to polish this right here, and it just gives it a nice finish, and it makes it so much easier to buff if you go over it with the 3000. Here I'm going to polish this out with my orbital polisher and some 3M EX rubbing compound. Do me a favor, smash that subscribe button and hit the like button. It doesn't cost you anything, and it really helps out the channel. I hope you enjoyed this content. I have a lot of how-to videos on different repairs on your vehicles. So stay tuned for more of that. Until next time, we'll see you later.